Well, hey, Josh here, and I just want to continue this conversation that we've been having on racial harmony and the gospel, and just we just want to continue the conversation. I got the Memphis 4 here with me, and it's been 2 years since. It's hard to believe it's been 2 years, like in a blink, since we were in Memphis together at the MLK 50 conference. And man, it was a powerful time for us. But I want you guys to just take a second and talk about what that experience was like for you, what you took away from MLK 50 in terms of the gospel and racial harmony, and just this conversation that we're having about this today. So.
Well, for me, I've been at Calvary about 11 years now, but prior to that, I went to a predominantly black church in Gary, Logan Park Assembly of Christ, right on 15th and Polk. And then, so I was at a predominantly black church, and then being at Calvary for 11 years, I've been at a predominantly white church. And for me, that was my first gospel conference that you guys invited me to, which I'm very grateful for. For me, just seeing the diversity of people praise. Like it was like, whoa, I've never seen that before. You had the diversity among our little group, and then to look out and just see all different types of people from different backgrounds, and it didn't matter. It was just a room full of love, and it was there for one thing, and that was Jesus, the truth, the gospel. So that was pretty cool. I left Memphis. That was a very pivotal point in my walk. I left there literally, my faith was a little stronger, and my hope was a little bit deeper after that experience. So that's what Memphis really did for me. It's just seeing that.
There were some speakers that spoke, and you were just
another
impacted.
thing. So because we were down there for the MLK 50, the 50th anniversary of Martin Luther King's death, and I've been used to black preachers getting up and advocating on my behalf, but when you have Piper, Chandler, Moore. Russell Moore was the first speaker, and literally, if you know what Russell Moore looks like a dude that I would never talk to. Like, we just would have nothing in common. Literally, like, we would just pass each other in, the grocery store, and we would just never communicate. But, 10 minutes into that, I was, in tears, because I'd never seen someone advocate on my behalf and people that look like me so strongly and so definitively. It was just like, that was powerful. Not saying that the other black pastors didn't have something to say, but man, when you get someone that doesn't look like you, who understands and has something to say like that, it was mind-blowing.
What about you, John?
Man, I grew up in a really ethnically diverse part of LA when desegregation happened, and so I've always had this deep interest in the civil rights movement. And so when Dr. Charlie Dates got up there, and he's over at Progressive Baptist, right next to the
been to his
ball
church.
field.
My family's worshipped
up
gosh,
there. Yeah. Right, unbelievable. But here's what he did in the typical kind of black cadence of preaching, which speaks to me. There was one section where he said, "What the black church has wanted is for the white evangelical church to advocate for the black church."
Yes.
And he was calling me, and seriously, I was in tears. I was a wreck, because I can't be complicit in just silence. Like, I have to stand with my black brothers and sisters in this. And so it was this movement in my own heart to say, I can't be silent about this.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
For me, first of all, you're the one that put the trip together. So it was cool. It was such a good experience, especially the barbecue too.
Sure. We won't talk about food.
Yeah, right?
I'm this white guy from Canada. So we had
diversity of barbecue as well as the diversity.
I had them all picked out, right?
Yeah.
We were laughing on the way down. We've got this, Midwest American that's white, Black American, Japanese American, and this white Canadian. We were like, probably we would have won a prize if they had most diverse group that showed up.
Yeah.
But for me, it's funny. I'd always had a fascination growing up with American history, in particular, slavery, civil rights, the Civil War, all like the whole history, and like kind of, when you're able to just look from afar, you're kind of like, how the heck? Not to say that my country doesn't have its own issues with race and racism, for sure. But so it's always been a fascinating history to me to just, so going to this conference was kind of like just a dream to go to Memphis and to be more in touch with just Dr. King and more and that whole thing. We went to the Civil Rights Museum. So for me, it was amazing to really connect. It just ceased to be just history to me, and especially getting to know you more, like even just on the car ride down and hanging out. I mean, we knew each other from church to say hi.
Absolutely.
But in terms of, I mean, now we're in a small group together.
Yeah,
and
right.
having a deeper friendship, and that was kind of the catalyst for that. So actually putting like real feelings and real flesh and blood on history and realizing like the rawness of history is still very much at work and at play, and then connecting that to the gospel and how the church has definitely, made strides, but how we still have a lot of work to do when it comes to actually having the implications of the gospel flow out of us, and on both sides, especially the white church, but also in the black church. We both have work to do to come together. So that was really awesome.
And the church is the hope of the world, and we believe that. And I kind of want to lead this into this next question here. The time we had in Memphis was amazing, but then it's been 2 years now we've been back, and there's been all kinds of instances that continue to bubble up of racial disharmony and violence and injustice that we've seen. And I think, we're trying to learn on both sides, and we're trying to engage in the conversation. We're trying to break down walls, be bridge builders. We hear some of those conversations going on. I think for us to understand, it'd be good to hear from you guys. What's it like for you? Can you describe for us a little bit as a minority in a majority white culture here in Northwest Indiana in particular, but also maybe, in the church? Because I think we've got to keep the church and the world kind of separate, So, but what's it kind of like, that experience for you guys? Can you describe that?
Well, I've been here my whole life. This is home. I'm from the region. And you got to understand, I've been in Valpo for the past 20 years, but prior to that, I was born in Gary. And being raised in Gary, we were taught, there's this unwritten rule, I guess, that, hey, we don't cross county line road. I remember being as a kid, my mom taking me out to Super Kmart in Portage on 6. It's like, when we cross county line, she's like, put your seatbelt on, make sure because it's like when we cross that line, it was like you're behind enemy lines at this point.
Yeah.
So for me, having that experience and being taught those things, and then moving out here, going into my freshman year in high school, then I came across people who had never spoke to a black person or had a real conversation with them. And I would have the most common question is, can I touch your hair? Can I touch your hair? But you know what? It was good for me though, because I had to learn the difference. I had to learn to discern between people who were doing it to be a jerk or doing it because they were curious. And there was just a lot of people who they weren't trying to be mean. They just didn't know. You know what I mean? And so you find yourself, oh man, it's so strange. It's like, okay, now I didn't cross the line. Okay, I'm behind enemy lines. And you tend to, from my culture, is like, how do you live out there with all the white people? It's like, because they're people, just like you. You know what I mean? It's like, and then it's like from the white people here, it's like they hold me to my cultural standards as well. Like, don't you like chicken? Doesn't everybody like chicken?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's not just a black thing.
Especially with a waffle.
Especially with a waffle. I actually like sushi quite a bit.
I know you do.
I love sushi. My wife makes me vegan food. So it's kind of like,
But it's kind of like you're in the middle of two worlds.
Yes.
Right? And so where do you fit, right?
Where do you fit?
Right.
You really don't. You kind of, It's like, yes, you're seen, but you're not understood. Those are two different things. You know, I mean, people know who I am in the community. They see my family and they know who I am, but I just never feel like there's that deep understanding. You know, the people see my family and they're like, oh, that's just the Wilsons. It's like, yeah, I don't want you to like make my blackness like the most important thing about me, but you can't ignore the difference either.
Right.
You know what I mean? And there's a difference in my reality than other people's reality.
Right.
You know?
Talk about what it's like, because I've heard you say this before. Talk about, you know, what does it mean? Like when you walk into Calvary on a Sunday, you're looking at it way different than someone who's been in a white church their whole life and they're white. Like you've had to leave things behind to worship here, right?
Yes, I had to. So coming from a very charismatic, because that's how the black churches are.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, we're running around the church. People are, you know, they're talking in tongues and the whole nine. It's just like, whoa, it's very different. So coming to Calvary, the presentation is different. Okay, so I had to kind of get through that.
Yeah.
Like, okay, like they're still preaching the truth. It's just not as
The style, the feel, the preferences. Like, you have to lay those preferences down in order to come over to a different side, in a sense, and in terms of feel and style and what's comfortable in terms of worship. You know what I mean?
Exactly. And the best thing about that journey and going through that was it actually got rid of some cultural things I need to get rid of anyways. You know what I mean? To allow the gospel to really do what it needed to do in my heart. So like, I honestly stayed at Calvary because of Christine, my wife, because she didn't want to go to my predominantly black church, and we was just engaged and stuff, and I wanted to go to church with her. We felt that was important to be in church with each other. And so she didn't want to go there, so we tried several churches around here, and some friends invited us here, and she was like, I like it here, and I was like, you know, like, this is kind of stale for me, but
It's kind of like the worship of the wooden pole.
yeah. So I'm like, man, it's quiet in here. And so,
now I get an amen once in a while.
yeah,
From you.
yeah, right. So it's like, because I really cared for her, I stayed, and it's just funny how God works. Because I'm supposed to be here. I know that now. I didn't know that then, but I'm supposed to be here. So it's a really unique dynamic with that, and just how the gospel literally tore down, like God changed my environment, then he tore down some cultural things I need to let go of anyways. That was best for my Christian walk and for my marriage, okay? Two big important things. And it really allowed the gospel to change. And now I learn from people that don't look like me, and that's been so impactful in my life, really has. So.
How about you guys?
Man, this is an ongoing deal for me, a journey for me. You know, coming from the West, our question to Doc Lynn when we were interviewing was, "Hey, so where would we go for good Asian food?" And his answer was, "Well, it's probably not going to be a huge recruiting point." so you know, but here's, you know, and I want to be careful how I say this because. Like I'm not complaining and I'm not trying to like, oh, pity me kind of stuff. But I will say this, and I think Steve, you can relate to this, is that when this issue of like race comes up in the national discourse, after talking about it, I'm exhausted now. Yeah. I'm literally exhausted because. I think I want people to get it so deeply. And I understand that some people just need to be, it's a slow kind of movement. But I sense sometimes the same resistance. And I just get tired of it, seeing it become important to talk about and then disappearing because nobody wants to talk about it anymore. Yeah. So, and then it comes up again. Okay, let's talk about it. So maybe I'm a little bit hopeful that this time it might actually take root and last. So that's hard. It's exhausting for me. Yeah. And the other reason is because, you know, I just don't know at times where I fit. Like, I don't fit in an Asian church. I just don't. But being here in Indiana, I feel like honestly, consciously, there are times when I feel like, am I the only person who's like me
Yes.
in the room? And it's not like I feel sorry for myself. It's just, I know that I look very different than everybody else. And so to be honest with you, it's exhausting because at times I feel lonely.
Yeah.
Like I just don't fit anywhere. And so this is my calling. It takes energy almost every day because I have to remember that God has invited me in to be a bridge builder between, right?
Ethnicity,
The ethnicity,
social structures,
right?
yeah.
Because it's that important to me. So I don't think it's as easy as saying, just give people the gospel. We're all like children of God, and so why can't we just forget about that stuff? And the problem is that no, because there's stuff going on under the hood, right? That allows people to keep dismissing people of color, and so that's my role, to step into that and to try to bring some clarity to it for people if they're willing to listen and be teachable.
Yeah. You have a unique experience in terms of not fitting, and I think of it in terms of just nationality, right? Like, you know,
Yeah.
what's it mean to be
it's
American?
funny,
or-
like the one, I don't know that it's a luxury, but the one thing that I can do, which you guys can't, is I can disappear in any white
You
crowd.
can blend.
No one knows a clue, right? Like I look like every other, just white American.
Yeah.
So from that standpoint, you know, I've got to work to understand and get into your experience and into your head and hear you on that. But for me, what I've loved and how God's brought us together is I can actually identify with at times, feeling like where do I belong? Because, you know, Canada and the U.S. have so many similarities, but there actually are quite a lot of cultural differences. Like when we first moved, one of the temptations as a Canadian is to just stand on a pedestal and point out all the problems in America, right? Like, you know, this nationalistic pride, because I'm proud of being a Canadian. I love my country, but it certainly has many, many problems. But coming here, one of the things that hit us right away is like politics. It's just like, whoa, you know, when it flares up, the politics here and how partisan it is, it's very, we get very acutely aware that we're just not from here. And the sports culture was actually another thing to us. It's not nearly as big in Canada, and that just makes you acutely aware. And then, you know, we're green card holders in the U.S. right now, and we're kind of caught between, and there was a long visa process to get that. And so there's that, like, I can't vote in Canada, and I can't vote here yet. And you do wrestle with this at times, like, man, I don't have ownership of anything. Like, I don't really fit in. Like, but at the same time, the thing is that God has replaced anything we've given up or anything at times that we feel we lack. He's given us this church family that is thicker than any earthly blood, you know. And so we constantly teach our kids, and we remind ourselves that our allegiance isn't to a flag, it's not to a nation, it's to a people, it's to a kingdom that we've been called to, and we've been bought by Jesus' blood. And so this is where our allegiance lies, right? And so, and that's been another thing we've wrestled with, is Americans are very much more overtly patriotic, and that's been a thing, like even pledging allegiance to a flag is like, whoa. I mean,
Right.
You know, it just was weird for us.
You guys don't do that? Wow.
No. So it's just, you know, it helps me identify with some of those feelings, at least.
I guess maybe just to kind of come out of that, a final question maybe. How do you see the church, what should our voice be? Is there hope in terms of movement racial harmony, and we've talked. We preached about this on Sunday. But what is this new bloodline in the church, and how Christ has taken away the dividing wall of hostility between us? How does that give you hope? But then, how can we be these bridge builders? Because you're going to get stepped on from people over here. A bridge gets stepped on from people over here and people over here, as Dex Harris pointed out to us this week so truthfully. But how do we do that?
I think you did a great job of preaching on it this past Sunday. I think a lot of it has to do with proximity. You're not going to learn this stuff in a book.
Right.
Especially art history books, who are very biased about them. Yeah. You're not going to learn this in a book. It's about getting close to someone.
And being willing to hear the other side.
Yes.
That's the key, right?
Yes.
Proximity, not like I'm just going to go up and talk to somebody that's black.
Yeah, ain't
kind of
work
thing,
like that.
right? Like,
It
no,
ain't
it's
gonna
like
work like that.
hearing,
Yes,
listening.
Yes.
Like for people to, like you've told me some of the things of what it's like to be the model minority here, right? Because there's a weight that's on you, and I just don't think that people really have even thought about that.
No, they don't. I mean, they don't have to. It's not part of their reality.
Yeah.
Because they don't have to deal with it. But
I think the humility in listening is such a huge, and it's hard to stay off Facebook in times like this, because you just get down these rabbit holes of watching people go at each other, and it's funny how if your first response isn't just to listen and what can I learn and how can I change.
Then I want to be self-aware.
Yeah,
I want
instead of coming to the table with, here's how I'm going to tell you I'm right.
I don't want my wall.
Yeah.
You're wrong.
Don't tell me.
I know all the
privilege.
stats. I know all the facts.
a lot of people listen to respond as opposed to listening to understand. And you want to be on the side. I mean, when Christine and I get into a disagreement, it's not that we just want to win. We just want each other to understand each other.
Yeah.
We want to be understood. And it's the same thing with this racial harmony. We just want to be understood.
Yeah.
So, and it takes proximity and listening. Those are two
Vulnerability.
major things.
Being willing to
vulnerability.
be an idiot, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm sorry, I didn't know. You did.
I would add it's really good for people to drop some of the right, because defensiveness, to go into the stats or whatever, defensiveness is always representative of power being threatened inside of people. Like, I'm going to lose something, and so here you go. And so people deflect the conversation. Instead of just listening to a person, they'll deflect it by throwing out all the stats on black crime and this and that, instead of just saying, can you just grieve and lament with people that somebody was murdered, right, over that. So I think one would be, we really need to be the church and not tied to a particular political persuasion, because for some people we're going to look liberal because we're gospel-bearing people, right? We're going to look liberal to some people, but to other people we're going to look conservative. And we just don't toe the line. We're just going to, because we follow Jesus. But the other thing I would add too is this. Read. Read the stories. Like, just the one book I would recommend that reads really well is From a Mother to a Son. And you begin to hear a black mother's letters and prayers for her 2-year-old son. And it's really hard to discount and say, you're being overly paranoid. Because no, the reality is, this is what she's thinking about and praying for. And the author is about as gospel-centered as we are. So
I think that's key. What is it in me? If I can't purposefully try to hear and learn and grab onto things that could potentially offend my sense of what I know or how my world should be ordered. And I think that's the problem, is a lot of people they just listen to what confirms their world order, right? It's like
their life, their reality.
Even why can't I even just hear some black voices that maybe they're not even gospel-centered or Christian? Why can't I at least hear that and discern in my spirit?
I take bits of the truth out of that.
Why can't I expose myself to that? What do I have to lose?
Because what happens then is you get lumped in, and all of a sudden now you hold to everything that's liberal, It's like, no, I wasn't saying
Just
that.
trying to gain understanding and learn.
Yes.
But also, if you pull from here and you pull from there, you end up feeling like me and John. You feel alone because you don't have an allegiance to any one group completely.
I think that's it.
You know what I mean? And everyone wants to feel like.
But this is a
I
good
belong.
place to end it, okay? In
Yeah.
this conversation, and I appreciate us taking this racial harmony conversation and just furthering it. We're pushing the ball down the field a little bit here, and letting you guys in on this. But I think the allegiance thing is the fact that as Christians we don't fit in a mold. We don't fit in this world.
Nope.
We're homeless here. We're sojourning through, and God has made a way for us to be brought together in this one bloodline. But in this bloodline doesn't fit the left. It doesn't fit the right. It doesn't fit this culture, that culture. It transforms culture and ethnicity and socioeconomics, and it's this. Our allegiance is to one Lord,
Yep.
and
that's
the
what
hope that
binds
we
us
have in
together.
Him,
And
and
that's what binds us together.
It's the
Absolutely.
grace that He's shown us. So.
Yep.
Amen.
Yep.
All right. Well,
Amen.
thank you guys for having the conversation.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Love you guys.
Yep.